Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to mourn the loss of Joe, the beloved houseplant. We will all miss him dearly. I've known Joe his whole life. I was his main caretaker, basically his father figure, and he and I made a lot of cherished memories together. Out of everything, though, I'll remember his perseverance the most. He was a trooper, and he kept going through life never giving up. He'd been through a lot, but he kept marching on. What kept him going was his love for sunny days, his enjoyment of playing in the dirt, and his ability to stare out the window all day long. He just loved doing that most of all. I want to go back to Joe's roots and talk about how he displayed strength throughout his whole life. From the first day that Joe and I met, he had his scars. He was a gift from my girlfriend, and before I keep going, I want to say she's not very happy that he's passed away, but oh well. She had cats, though, and her ferocious felines kept picking on him. They would never leave him alone. Joe remained, though, despite the teeth marks in his leaves, looking like he had just got done with a fight with Mike Tyson. After that, Joe lived in a cold, cramped dorm room with me and Helzer. Never once did I hear him complain, unlike my friends and my roommate. He didn't mind the north-facing window not getting enough sun. He didn't mind the cold temperatures that would make an evergreen shiver. And he didn't mind that his pot was just a little too small and his roots were all stuck together. He took what he had and he was content with life. We all appreciated his ability to listen to conversations. He never interrupted and he never talked about himself. And for that matter, he never talked about anything either. He was in perfect health until he moved home with me to Des Moines in March. At first, he seemed to thrive in the new environment, despite his anxiety about my cats. They never did bother him as much, though. We then realized that things were happening. He started turning yellow, and then he started turning brown. We didn't realize it up until this point that his pot was about as wet as the Midwest was during the floods of '93. We took other people's advice to keep him afloat. We got him a new pot, and a new soil, and a new watering schedule. Unfortunately, it was too late. Joe passed away peacefully doing what he loved, sunbathing. Now that you've heard about his roots and his life story, I want you to know where his name stems from. Joe was named after Joe Biden, a perseverant figure he looked up to. While little Joe wasn't political, because he was a plant after all, he was inspired by Joe Biden's story. Joe Biden was able to press on after multiple losses in his life, and that inspired my little plant to appreciate life and love those around him while he could. He was also inspired by Joe Biden's political comeback this election. After his huge losses in Iowa and New Hampshire, everybody thought he was down. But he came back up, and now he's the presumptive nominee. And that was just awe-inspiring to little Joe. We hoped Joe would have a similar comeback story. Joe knew his life would be difficult, but he stayed positive even during his troubles. Even while he looked dead, we hoped he would surprise us. Just like Joe Biden, we hoped that he would come back. Or maybe just like baby Goode, in some form or another. However, there was no firewall, no failsafe, and no South Carolina to bring him back. After wading through his pot for weeks, little Joe had to drop out of his race. As we close, I want to remind you all how much of a fighter he really was. If any of us is ever going through a rough or challenging time where we feel like it's too much, remember little Joe Biden. His strength was continuously tested, and while he didn't always come out smelling like a rose, he always came out positive. Let his life serve as an inspiration, especially these days. I want to end with a quote from Joe Biden. Failure at some point in your life is inevitable, but giving up is unforgivable. May Joe rest in peace.